Hi and welcome to this video blog with me, Wayne from swimmingcyclingrunning.com. This week we're in the third of our sessions that are blogs that analyse the front crawl stroke, particularly for triathletes, but we're using the BLABT system that the ASA teach their teachers and coaches to analyse swimming with, and that's body position, legs, arms, breathing and timing. We have dealt with the first three, so this week, naturally, we're on breathing and timing. Now, I'll have a bet with you. I will bet that you know one thing for absolute certain, and that one thing is that if you put your head into the water, you can't breathe. And I firmly believe that all of the problems that adults have when trying to learn to swim reasonably fast, especially for triathlon, comes from the fact that everyone knows that they can't breathe in the water, and so what you tend to get is a lot of pushing the head out the water or over rotating. Most of the problems in front crawl can stem back to that fact. I can't breathe in the water, therefore I have to get my head out the water somehow. We're going to look at that on the computer, and then we'll come back and do some further analysis, perhaps standing up with me in front of the camera again. So we'll just go away to the computer and we'll be back shortly.
Okay, so here we're looking at Polly. Polly's actually a national 800-metre swimmer, and we've just stopped her as she's taking a breath here. And you can see the lead hand is on the surface of the water. Her head is turned to the side, but one goggle is still in the water, and she's breathing in a trough she's created there of air, and she can breathe perfectly happy there. And the second arm, the arm that's just driven back, has just finished its stroke, and she's going to exit the water. And if we take that on just a little bit, you can see she's rotated back. Her head is absolutely central and not moving anywhere, and she's going to take a breath every 4 strokes. And you can see her head turn, and we'll stop it, and you can see her head is definitely in the water. The arm is on the surface or close to the surface and leading. It's not pushing down, and she turns back and she's grabbed the water with the arm. Now that's important. Now, as she's turning back, she's grabbing the water with the arm. I think actually she could delay that slightly, or delay her arm moving down slightly, but you can see the catch that she's getting out in front of her and the head turning back at the same time. So we'll go back. Her head's in the water, her body is rotated to the side of the pool. That's everything: her thighs, her hips, her chest, everything's rotated to the side of the pool, and that is a really good position for breathing. Alright, now let's take a look at Polly from above. So we can see her breathing as it happens. The computer just snagged a touch. And there we go. Let's just take that back again. You'll notice that her left goggle is still in the water. Her mouth has just cleared the water, and her arm is just about to exit when she actually takes her breath. So there we go, her arm's just exiting and she's starting to take her breath. If we take that forward, I don't like the hand-centric swimming there where she's pulling her hand forward. She's still breathing in. The hand is now passing the head, and the head is still out the water. So every time you actually take a stroke and you're breathing, you should be able to see your hand pass your head, and as your hand goes round, your head goes through and in. Let's just take that forward slightly. And Polly breathes every 4 here. Again, she's starting to turn her head to the side as the hand comes back, accelerating hard. Her head's now turned to the side, and you can see she opens her mouth to breathe, and she can still see her hand passing her head as she's breathing. And that hand, the rotation of that hand forward, brings her head back into the water. Alright, we're now going to look at Rory, who's a pretty good swimmer. He's a national swimmer at backstroke and just below national standards at 100-metre front crawl. Let's just show you what he's doing. He's more of a loper in terms of his style because he tends to push his head out the water to breathe. There we go. If we stop it there, you can see his head's actually come out the water even though everything else is pretty much on the surface. He drives this hand down that supports that head being out the water. But you can see, if you look at this arm, he's starting to turn his head as his arm accelerates strongly to the back. He's swimming fast here. Yeah, so it's very difficult to stop that motion. But you can see his hand's accelerating to the back, his hand's about to exit, his head's about to exit the water as well. Bang, he can breathe, and his hand then drags his head back in as it re-enters, which is exactly the same as Polly. So for timing, you breathe as your arm is out the water. There we go, out the water, his hand brings his head back in. Out the water, his hand brings his head back in. And that's the timing issue there. So even though Rory is doing a slightly different stroke to Polly, he is actually timing it nigh on exactly the same. Okay, so now let's look at Rory from above in slight slow motion. And he's got a lovely straight position, and he's going to breathe to the left side now, and you can see it's not exactly the same as Polly. We see him again. There we go. Now his hand's just exiting, he's preparing to take his breath, and his hand, he can see his hand, it comes forward fairly fast, he can see his hand come over his head, and it's his arm that drags his head back into the water. And that's how you should be. And if you do that, if you breathe as your arm is out the water, your body will remain in a prone position right close to the surface of the water. And that's really what you need. So we'll just run that on one more time, see if he breathes. There we go again on the fourth time. Okay, so that's the timing in front crawl swimming. Okay, we're just taking another look at Polly here to see the extent of her rotation and how much she has to rotate to breathe. Now, because of her speed, Polly can limit her rotation to just about 50 degrees from the horizontal. She can do that because when she turns her head, as you can see her here looking over her shoulder, she's actually breathing in a cup of air created by the speed that she's going. That is really very much dependent on speed, and if you were swimming slower than about 130 hundredths, you wouldn't necessarily get that cup. You get it at probably about 130 to 135 hundredths. Anything above that, that cup disappears because it's filled in because of the speed you're swimming. And all you have to do is actually rotate your body more. So you're going to rotate your body so it looks further up to the ceiling. So you might have to rotate this much with your head still looking over your shoulder, but your head now out the water. You might not be able to keep that goggle in the water. So all these things have to be slightly variable. But if you swim slightly slower, 140, 150 hundredths, you may have to rotate up to 90 degrees because you can always look over your shoulder at 90 degrees with your head out instead of doing what Polly's doing, which is about 50 to 60 degrees.
Okay, so there we have it, breathing and timing in the front crawl stroke for swimming. Two of the most vitally important things to get your swimming right. Now remember, if you watch your hand above you, you're probably breathing correctly as it comes past, and then turn your head in. So your arm actually drags your head forward, and your arms virtually catch up each other as they go through. Now notice my arms also are accelerating towards the back. Yeah. If you want to practice your breathing, think about it as finishing your breath before your arms completed its underwater cycle. So, touch, touch. And you can see, if you breathe like that, you're in exactly the right position when you want to keep your body on the surface. Another thing, if you're in open water especially, make sure that your arms are actually dictated to by your breathing and not your breathing dictated to by your arms. Your arms can move much faster than your chest. So if you go you'll be comfortable and in control. However, I cannot keep up with my arms if I try to do that. And in open water, you'll be uncomfortable, you'll be out of breath, and you won't have a nice experience. So there's a few tips for breathing and timing, the most important things in the front crawl stroke. Okay, next week it'll be a different blog on running. Hopefully you'll join us then, and you've enjoyed this one. Thanks very much for watching.